Good morning and welcome back to BIFA TV, your daily dose of industry information. Today I'm joined by Ian Matheson for this week's edition of What the Papers Say. Good morning, Ian. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning there, Natalie. I hope you're well.
Yep, I'm all good, thank you. So, what news
Good.
items have we got on the list for this week?
Well, the T word is well and truly back on the agenda.
Oh no, what's that one?
Well, it's tariffs. It's back in the news again this week. Temporary truce between the USA and China, which means both sides have agreed to pause their reciprocal shipping levies for a year and cut tariffs on Chinese imports into the USA.
So, can you share some of the finer details with us?
Well, quite complicated. There's not really enough time to explain them in full in an episode of What the Papers Say. But in summary, the USA cancelled its 10% fentanyl related tariff on Chinese goods and extended suspension of the 24% reciprocal tariffs that it had declared for 1 year. Both sides agreed to a pause for a year, the USA's 50% penetration rule and China's October the 9th export control measures, pending review of implementation plans. The USA will also defer for 12 months its Section 301 actions against China's maritime, logistics, and shipbuilding sectors, and China will halt its corresponding countermeasures for the same period.
So, can you tell us some of the consequences that our members will face and also the shippers that they serve as well?
Well, I guess there are lots, Natalie. Viewers should really read the article on the Shipping and Freight Resource website, which provides a very good summary of what's happening.
And we'll be sure to provide a link to that article within today's episode description.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Actually, in related news, Natalie, a recent article on the Splash 24/7 website suggests that globalization isn't dead, it's just changing direction. That's the opinion of a guy called Neil Shearing, who's the group chief economist at Capital Economics.
Okay, and what does he have to say about that?
Well, the narrative, I think, is that globalization has collapsed under the weight of tariffs and nationalism. He says that misses the mark. What's occurring, as far as he's concerned, is not a retreat from global trade, but a complete reconfiguration of it in many ways. And actually, rather than shrinking, trade flows and shipping routes are being rerouted in a realignment driven by geopolitics.
Sure. So we shouldn't be planning for the end of globalization, but instead we should be navigating its fractured new form.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it'd be a good idea to add a link to the article in the panel below.
Sure, we should definitely do that.
And meanwhile, in container shipping, there was another increase for Drewry's Composite World Container Index last week. It went up 4% to $1,822 per 40-foot container. But at the same time, Drury and a lot of other analysts expect the supply demand balance to soften next quarter, easing rates again.
And we'll have to see how that pans out, won't we?
Mhm.
Yeah. So what's happening in the world of air cargo?
Oh, some interesting news from that sector, Natalie. The IATA, they released the 2026 manuals for cargo and ground handling. There's almost 100 changes and revisions in those manuals.
Sure. So are there any key changes that are worth mentioning?
There are, yeah. For cargo, battery-related updates dominate in the updated manual. IATA says that incidents involving overheating have led to the need for revised regulations around the shipment of lithium batteries, and also their live animal regulations manual have also been updated to further improve animal welfare.
Sure. So it sounds like our members who are involved in those types of shipments will need to read this article.
Oh, absolutely. It's probably a good idea to provide a link to that as well in the relevant area.
Yes, we can do that.
Good. Meanwhile, at the same time in air cargo, IATA reported that the cargo demand improved for the seventh month in a row in September, despite ongoing traffic declines in the Asia-North America trade lane. The figures actually show that air cargo demand rose 2.9% year on year in September, while capacity was up by 3%. but the growth in demand slowed from August's 4.1% increase and actually lags behind the 3.2% improvement for the first 9 months of 2025.
Okay, so has IATA provided any explanation to those statistics?
Yep, it certainly has. It said the demand fall in the Asia-North America trade lane is due to US tariff policy, and that obviously includes the ending of the de minimis exemptions. But actually, this has been compensated for by strong growth within Asia and also on routes linking Asia to Europe, Africa, and the Middle East.
So has IATA said anything else about this growth?
Yeah, they have quite a lot, but many have been seeing an unwinding of global trade. Air cargo seems to be adapting successfully to serve shifting market trends, and that goes back to what I was saying earlier about the guy talking about the general realignment of trade.
And moving on to beef for now, Ian, we have some news of our own that we'd like to share.
Yeah, we do, Natalie. BIFA hosted a delegation of Ethiopian freight forwarders and shipping agents last week, as well as a few others from the country's logistics sector.
And this follows the working agreement that we signed with them back in May of this year.
Yep, that's right. Last week's visit marked the next phase in that partnership, which is, as you know, aimed at helping to modernise Ethiopia's freight and logistics industry.
And hopefully, Ian, we think that will provide some benefits to members of both trade associations.
Well, yeah, let's hope so. Now, at the same time as meeting with BIFA's staff, the delegation had meetings with a lot of other stakeholder organisations in the UK, and it provided a pretty first-hand insight into the UK freight and logistics scene.
That's right, we had them visiting Donata at Heathrow Airport, also going over to the London Gateway Port, and finally meeting with our counterparts at the TT Club.
Yeah, and from what I understand, Natalie, the discussions focused on sort of operational standards, regulatory frameworks, and professional training, which have all been identified as areas that are key to supporting Ethiopia's logistics sector. In fact, two members of the delegation also attended last week's TransAid showcase and met with Princess Anne, the patron of the Sub-Saharan Development Charity.
That's right, and some of our members will be aware that BIFA is a long-standing supporter of TransAid, and we were really proud to be a gold sponsor at that event.
Yep, it was indeed, Natalie. It's a good event and well attended, and lots good to see lots of their supporters there. Now, coming back to the delegation that came over last week, they actually concluded their events with a meeting at the Ethiopian embassy, where they had a sort of a roundup of all the stuff that had been achieved during the week.
And I understand you were kindly gifted some of their finest Ethiopian coffee as well.
Absolutely, it was very nice. It is too, yeah.
Good stuff. Well, I'll leave you to enjoy your freshly gifted coffee. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, and thank you for your update.
No problem, Natalie. It's always a pleasure, as you know.
Thanks for joining us again. As always with these episodes, we always provide the links to the articles we've discussed. They'll be found in the description below. That's all for today's episode of B for TV, your daily dose of industry information.